Okay, ever find yourself shouting, "We won,"
Yeah,
even when, like, your only contribution to the game was deciding what to order for takeout?
right.
Or maybe discreetly tucking away that team jersey after, a crushing loss.
Yeah,
We've all been there.
we have.
Today's deep dive explores the wild world of sports fandom and why we get so emotionally invested, even when our team's, performance has absolutely zero impact on our actual lives.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is.
This pile of research you've provided dives right into that psychology.
Yeah.
Using terms like burging and corfing, which sound a bit technical,
Right.
but they explain these almost instinctual fan behaviors.
Right, like those terms came straight out of a psychology textbook.
Yeah.
But they're actually pretty easy to grasp. Burging, that's basking in reflected glory.
Yes.
It's basically wanting to be seen with the winners, even if you, just watch the whole thing from your couch.
Yeah.
Like, remember that time our friend wore his lucky jersey every day during the playoff?
Oh, perfect example. Oh, yeah.
It's that feeling of, we did it, even when we were just spectators.
Totally.
And it ties into this concept called social identity theory.
Okay.
Essentially, we are wired to want to be part of groups that make us look good, boost our social standing. So associating yourself with a winning team, even if you had nothing to do with the win, it reflects positively on you. It's like a mental shortcut to feeling good about ourselves. Instant social cred. And of course, there's the flip side. Corfing, cutting off reflected failure.
Right.
It's almost like we're trying to protect our self-esteem by distancing ourselves from the losers.
Exactly. One study looked at how often students wore university apparel after their football team won versus when they lost.
Oh, interesting.
Care to guess the outcome?
I think I can see where this is going. Way more team spirit on display after a big win, right?
Spot on. Researchers found a significant spike in university-branded clothing after a win. It's like we subconsciously think, their win is my win, but their loss, nope, not associated with that. It all circles back to that need to maintain a positive social identity, even if it means subtly shifting our allegiances based on a team's performance.
So it's not just about being a fair weather fan. It's almost like our brains are hardwired to care about these wins and losses, even if it's just subconscious social maneuvering.
And it goes even deeper than that. Some research suggests our brains don't just want us to look good, they want us to feel good too. Our actual self-esteem might get a boost when our team wins.
Wow.
So that feeling of elation, it might be more than just being happy for your team. It could be your brain chemically rewarding you for being part of the winning tribe.
Wow, that's wild. Okay, so we've got this basic drive to belong, to feel good about ourselves, and our team's performance can actually feed that need, even if it's all happening on a subconscious level. Where do unexpected wins fit into all of this? One article mentioned that those can actually intensify our burgeoning urges.
That's right. And there's research to back it up. One study looked at how people reacted to their team's wins after experiencing a personal setback. They had participants take what they thought was a creativity test,
Okay.
then gave some negative feedback telling them they didn't do well, while others received positive feedback. Afterward, they asked everyone about a recent game their university's team had played.
So they were testing if a blow to our ego, like bombing a creativity test, would make people cling to a team victory even harder. That's fascinating. What did they find?
Well, they noticed a fascinating pattern in how people talked about the game. Those who'd been told they bombed the creativity test were way more likely to use the word "we" when describing their team's win, almost like they were trying to absorb some of that victory to offset their own perceived failure.
So it's like they were saying, okay, so I might not be a creative genius, but hey, WE won the game. That's pretty telling. It really highlights how these seemingly small shifts in our language can reveal a lot about what's going on beneath the surface.
Exactly. It shows that burgeoning isn't just about looking good socially, it's also about protecting and even boosting our own sense of self-worth. And it gets even more nuanced when you consider that this study focused on college students who are already navigating a period of intense identity formation. Imagine the impact these dynamics might have in other areas of life, like, say, politics, where group affiliation is often front and center.
Now that you mention it, one of these studies actually looked at that very thing, how students displayed their political allegiances after an election. And it seems like even when your chosen candidate doesn't win, that desire to identify with a group can be incredibly strong.
Absolutely. This study had some fascinating findings. You might assume that students who publicly supported the losing candidate would want to downplay their affiliation, maybe even try to distance themselves a bit.
Right.
But the research showed the opposite. Those who had visibly shown their support for the losing candidate actually ended up feeling an even stronger sense of identification with that candidate and their ideals.
Wow, so even in the face of defeat, that pull towards group identity and maybe even a bit of defiance can be really powerful. It makes you think about those diehard fans who stick with their teams through thick and thin, season after season, regardless of the win-loss record.
It's true. And it makes you wonder, are Burgeing and Corfing universal experiences, or do cultural factors play a role? Which brings us to a really interesting case study, the Wellington fan phenomenon.
Right. The rugby fans in Wellington, New Zealand,
Yeah.
known for their unwavering support, even when their teams aren't exactly setting the league on fire. What makes them different? Is it just unwavering loyalty?
It's a fascinating question, and one of your sources, a blog post written by a Wellington fan, offers some interesting insights. They suggest that the city's strong sense of community might be a factor. Wellingtonians are known for their tight-knit social fabric, so perhaps their loyalty to their rugby teams is an extension of that broader sense of belonging.
So instead of just burging for individual self-esteem, maybe they're burging for the whole community. It's like their team's success, or lack thereof, is a shared experience that brings them closer together.
Exactly. And the author also points to Wellington's economic affluence as a potential contributing factor. Perhaps when your basic needs are met, you have more psychological freedom to embrace the emotional roller coaster of sports fandom without feeling as threatened by the social implications of a loss.
That's a really interesting angle. So maybe it's not just about burgeoning and corfing in a social vacuum. Factors like economic security and cultural norms could influence how those dynamics play out.
It suggests a much more complex picture, right? Individual psychology, social pressures, cultural values, maybe even economic factors. All of these elements might be weaving together to shape how we experience sports fandom.
It's like those unexpected wins we talked about earlier. They tap into something deeper than just the thrill of victory. Maybe it's the underdog story, the shared experience of hope and disappointment that makes those moments so powerful. It makes you wonder if those Wellington fans are onto something. Maybe they figured out that at the end of the day, it's the shared experience, the sense of community that truly matters. What do you think?
It's an intriguing thought, isn't it? Perhaps their unwavering support, win or lose, allows them to bypass some of that burgeoning and corfing pressure and tap into a purer form of fandom, one rooted in genuine connection and shared identity.
And maybe that's something all fans can learn from. Instead of letting our self-esteem hinge on the performance of our team, we can focus on the bigger picture. The social connections, the shared passion for the sport, the thrill of the game itself.
Absolutely. It's about finding that sweet spot where we can be fully engaged and invested without letting the outcome dictate our mood or sense of self-worth. Easier said than done, right?
You're not kidding. I can already see myself catching that burgeoning instinct next time my team pulls off a win. But hey, at least now I'll be more aware of it. Do you think we can actually rewire our brains to be less susceptible to these tendencies? Or are we just hardwired for this kind of social maneuvering?
It's the million-dollar question. I'm not sure there's a simple answer, but I do think that by understanding these psychological mechanisms, by becoming aware of our own burgeoning and corfing tendencies, we can start to make more conscious choices about how we engage with our teams and how much we let their performance affect us.
That's a great point. Maybe it's not about eliminating those instincts altogether, but rather about finding a healthier balance. After all, sports is supposed to be fun, right?
Hmm.
A source of entertainment, excitement, and camaraderie.
Precisely. And if we can manage to keep those positive aspects in focus, even in the face of defeat, then maybe we can all experience fandom like a true Wellingtonian.
I love that idea. So to all you listeners out there, the next time you find yourself caught up in the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat, take a moment to remember burgeoning and corfing. Remember that those emotional swings, that urge to boast or hide, are all part of being human, part of our innate desire to belong and feel good about ourselves. But also remember that there's more to fandom than just winning and losing. It's about the shared experience, the sense of community, and the pure, unadulterated love of the game. And who knows, maybe with a little self-awareness, we can all learn to ride the waves of victory and defeat with a little more grace and a lot more joy.
Well said. Now excuse me while I go dig out my lucky jersey in preparation for this weekend's match.
Hey, no judgment here. I might just join you. Thanks for diving into this fascinating topic with me. And to all of you listening, keep those thinking caps on, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.